Olaf Scholz's time in the German Chancellery, it is coming to an end. And before he leaves, the German armed forces are honoring him with a farewell ceremony. The ceremony is taking place on the parade ground of the Ministry of Defense. It marks not only the end of a chancellor's term in office, but also a peaceful transfer of power. It is being held a day before the Social Democrat hands over the reins of power to conservative politician Friedrich Merz. And as per tradition, Scholz can pick 3 songs that are then performed by the Armed Forces Staff Band. And I understand that these are In My Life by the Beatles, an excerpt from Johann Sebastian Bach's Second Brandenburg Concerto, and Respect by Otis Redding. Here is part of what Scholz said on this final evening of his time as Chancellor.
Let us not forget the strength Germany has when we stick together. To serve as Germany's Chancellor has been the honor of my life. I have always gladly borne this huge responsibility.
All right, I want to pull in our political correspondent, Simon Young. He was at the farewell ceremony. He's still there, as a matter of fact. Simon, this is a German tradition that dates back to the 16th century. What's the atmosphere? And maybe more importantly, what songs did Scholz choose for his goodbye party?
Yeah, Brent, this is a German tradition, but it's the kind of military ceremonial that you don't often see, frankly, out in the public here in Germany. It's the biggest sort of piece of military pageantry that the German armed forces do, and this is done on this occasion to say goodbye, to give a farewell salute, as it were, to Germany's leader, Olaf Scholz. It's an occasion of speeches, and as you mentioned, Olaf Scholz talked about how grateful he was for the trust that people had put in him. He said that Germany had nothing to fear for the future if it relied on its people, and he also talked about how fortunate the country is to have friends in Europe and around the world. So a solemn atmosphere. I think you can hear the clapping from the assembled guests, the federal president, Steinmeier, and Friedrich Merz, the man who will become Olaf Scholz's replacement as Chancellor tomorrow. They're here to honour Olaf Scholz as well. Well, you've named the songs that he chose, and finishing off with Respect, made famous by Aretha Franklin. Of course, I guess that's partly a hint at the kind of values that Olaf Scholz believes he stood for.
That's right, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, that's true. Well, now, the past 4 years, Simon, they have been all but easy for the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, and the 3 parties that were in his coalition. We want to take a look now at the most significant moments of Scholz's mandate.
Modernising Germany while tied to a 3-way political marriage. A tough job, but Olaf Scholz and his coalition partners began in a confident mood. Social Democrats, Free Democrats and Greens saw themselves as the government of progress. In November 2021, their coalition agreement was ready. They called it an alliance for freedom, justice and sustainability. But just months later came the event that would overshadow their entire period in government: Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Chancellor Scholz announced a special €100 billion defence fund. Speaking in the Bundestag, he made it clear government policy was about to change.
Wir erleben eine Zeitenwende.
We're living through a watershed era, and that means that the world afterwards will no longer be the same as the world before.
But soon the parties began to argue about the scope of arms deliveries to Ukraine. While the FDP and the Greens were ready to send heavy weapons, Scholz and the SPD applied the brakes. Eventually, the Chancellor did agree to deliver key equipment like the Leopard 2 tank, but the charge that Germany was hesitant stuck. The war in Ukraine also threatened an energy crisis for Germany. One response was a plan by the Green Deputy Chancellor Robert Habeck to speed up installation of climate-friendly heating systems. But the Free Democrats were against the move. The cracks in the coalition were becoming obvious. The fact this law is not happening is a broken promise. It's down to the Parliament. I'm only in the government. In late 2023, the Federal Constitutional Court blocked the government's budget, leaving a €60 billion hole in Germany's finances. Plans by Free Democrat Finance Minister Christian Lindner to cut spending by axing agricultural subsidies triggered a massive wave of farmers' protests. Scholz's SPD wanted to suspend Germany's tight debt rules, but that was a red line for Lindner's Free Democrats. The coalition was starting to unravel. By autumn 2024, Germany's economy was in real trouble, recession for the second year in a row. Lindner launched a plan to reduce climate protection and social welfare. From the point of view of SPD and Greens, it was tantamount to filing for divorce. Crisis talks in the Chancellery could not save the situation. Scholz sacked his finance minister, and the way was soon open for early elections. The three-party coalition did achieve some of what it set out to. The switch to renewable energy continued. Becoming a German citizen was made easier, as was the possibility of changing gender. But because of the faltering economy, the challenge of war in Ukraine, and internal quarrels among the three parties, many felt it was always just a matter of time before the coalition, which started with such high hopes, finally fell apart.
Yeah, it has been an eventful 3 years, a little bit more than 3 years, Simon. I mean, after all is said and done, what will be the Scholz legacy, do you think?
Well, I think there's a few things, Brent. Maybe above all, it's that sort of sober, unemotional, unglamorous style that Olaf Scholz was known for, I think, in the end, around the world, and his cautious approach. One thinks, for instance, of the cautious approach on Ukraine, his reluctance to deliver the most lethal weapons to Ukraine as quickly as some would have wanted. He said, no, let's be cautious, let's not escalate that situation, potentially make it worse. And that's typical of the sort of Olaf Scholz approach to things. I think he'll point to his response to the energy crisis and the fact that Germany somehow got through that without too many major shocks. But there will be those who'll say, well, no, Germany has slipped. Germany's suffered serious economic recession over the last couple of years. And in the end, I think many people will point out that Olaf Scholz presided over, in a sense, a failed government because it only lasted for 3.5 years rather than the full 4-year term, a three-party coalition. He just couldn't hold it together. And in the end, it was that sort of unemotional style that meant voters didn't perhaps really believe in the end that he was listening to them anymore. So I think you'd have to say, like many politicians, it'll be a mixed legacy that people will look back on.
Our very own Simon Young with the latest tonight right here in Berlin. Simon, as always, thank you.